Hey guys, Stealth here. This is going to be very, very painful to watch. I completely got my ass kicked, and I was playing terribly this time around. So this video is all about error analysis. What did I do wrong? What can I do better? And how can you learn from this game? Or at least from my mistakes, because really, at the end I was feeding 900 points. I lost my 900 points more than I was making. So, let this shit begin. I am using a US mechanized deck, which might not be the best choice for this map, but it is an interesting solution here because you have a lot of Bradleys with a lot of ATGMs, and that means that you can cover a lot of these fields without having to use too many vehicles, because Bradleys, of course, are provided with infantry. So my opening units are a couple of Bradleys, M1IP Abrams, M113s with AA infantry, Stinger Cs, Chaparrals, a couple of LAV scouts, one command vehicle. I'm going to bring in another LAV, a couple of Comvats for fire support, and a Chinook with Rangers. Now I'm going to push this up quickly. The objective is to capture Bravo as soon as possible. Jimmy's going to take care of Alpha. And with that we can hopefully take care of this field, cover it so that our allies can go into Delta as well as operate here on the left in Hotel. And Para was doing a very, very good job there. It's paramedic. So my units are pushing up the road, trying to get there as quickly as possible. By the way, before I forget it, this bridge here between Bravo and Alpha is bugged. Units get stuck pretty much on this section of the bridge. I've had this happen with CVs, transports, AA units. A lot of different vehicles have gotten stuck on this bridge. So I hope a patch is soon going to happen, but be wary of this bridge, as you may find your units just not arriving on the front line, because they're turning into a major clusterfuck on this bridge. Anyway, with that, I deployed a couple of Rangers forward into Echo as soon as possible to make sure that I have a lot of spotting capability here. A KA-50, I believe, maybe the K-52, either which doesn't really matter, but it took a couple of shots at my Chinook. It did make it out alive, thanks to the 10 strength of that thing. And my units are all arriving. I even have an LAV scout operating here on the highway, but as it later turns out, that LAV cannot see everything. And more on that later. We have captured Alpha, we've captured Bravo, we got a CV en route to Delta, paramedics operating in Foxtrot, and with that we have a lot more zones than the enemy does currently. But that's about to change. Now, since I'm not going into any resistance here, I'm pushing my Rangers forward, using my infantry in their transports to get them along this field as quickly as possible, and I got my Comvats set up as fire support for any transport that I may encounter. My M2A2 Bradleys are up here on the right, and my M2 Bradleys with the infantry holding this building are moving up towards the left flank. Now Mi-8 MTV pushing up there on the right, or towards the right, so pushing up my Chaparrals, trying to get shots on that MTV, as over here I'm getting a Chaparral and M113 with infantry ready to go. LAV scouts moving up, and I believe that this scout is going to be one of the first units that's going to get stuck on that bridge. Let's see if it encounters the bug. You can see that it's bucking back and forth, and there it gets stuck. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The thing's pretty much dropping off the bridge, or it should be at this stage. It is not going to move unless you tell it to move. So probably the pathing AI thinks that there's some sort of exit on this bridge, and that the vehicles can actually go that way. They can't, and therefore the unit is stuck. Now this is where it all went sour. Look at this. They have somehow captured our FOBs. We were very, very surprised by this. I initially thought, okay, how the fuck did they do this? Because we didn't see any kind of air rush. We have units spanning all over. And here's how they did it. This highway is not actually that high. I know that's not really what highway stands for, but there is an incline here. Because of this, none of our units along this highway spotted the incoming force, and they drove right into our base. They dropped off 120 more Skyas off of 8 BTR-80s, as well as having some Scrajets that are going to come in with, say, 5 Scrajets with AA infantry. At this stage we still had control, so I was bringing in infantry as quickly as possible, but I should have brought in Bradleys right from the get-go. So my infantry is coming up, but transports like the M113 are no match for BTR-80s. So you can see what's going to go down. My Bradleys here are doing an okay job, but again, they are going to struggle once you're dealing with 8 of those BTR-80As. So at this stage, I was very heavily distracted because I had to salvage whatever was left here, and we lost the CV, so we couldn't bring in any more units. As well as trying to slightly push up here. I was working on a push, but I couldn't continue that, so I was halted halfway because my attention is only going to be in one place at a time. Bringing units back was problematic. My offensive units were all the way out front, and you can see that this Bradley has expended half of its fuel. If it would have made it back here, it would have been out of fuel either in the zone or before it, and possibly before it because I want some room to maneuver here. So I couldn't bring any shit back either. So that forced me to start to bring in units from all the way out in Alpha or Foxtrot, and where you deploy the units is going to be crucial for where the units come from. If you deploy units on this flank, they will assume that Foxtrot's the shortest route and take that one. If you deploy them out there, you're going to see that Alpha is the shortest route. Now, I lost my Bradleys, and at this point I had been pretty much feeding them pretty bad. I had not scored a single point, and I was getting rather frustrated with this. We got some Bradleys here, but there's still a ton of these BTR-80s, a lot of more Skyas, although they are getting thinned down, and a couple of M8 AGSs, and these guys are going to provide the rescue for this zone. The longbow wasn't really required, but it is a nice fire support unit with the Hellfires, taking out any vehicles before they could get too close. But this did mean that we lost 6 points of income per second. And I don't mean that we are losing reinforcement points, but we're not getting them. So in that sense, we are losing them. As well as losing air support. This zone over here is only a land reinforcement, and it does not give you an air route. So we couldn't bring in airstrikes either. Now over here you can see that my units, which were pushing up, are getting nailed. I already lost one M2A2 Bradley here, and that's down to an Mi-24D, so that's pretty much how bad things had gotten at this stage. I'm trying to move my riflemen forward, as well as my rangers to spot something, but it was really a half-assed push, because I didn't have anything to back up my assault. I really was trying to probe the enemy lines, and of course my rangers are getting instantly nailed by a defensive perimeter here. So whatever I was going to spot would not get attacked, because the only unit that I had up there was an M1IP, a couple of Stingers and some other AA infantry. Or a couple of Chaparrals. So this was pretty much hopeless. Bringing in some more units from the right, 2 more Bradleys, or actually 4 more Bradleys with infantry, and all the way from the left flank, a LAV Scout and an MBT-70. Now the M8 AGS managed to neutralize most of the vehicles there and a lot of the infantry, but not all of them are dead yet. And we don't have a CV here, so we can still not capture the area. And that means no reinforcements from this point and no airstrikes for us. So over here we got Jacques, who is reinforcing this area with another command unit, but it's going to take a while before they get there. Until then, I just keep losing unit after unit after unit, having done only 30 points of damage. I was feeding like a madman at this stage. So what really happened here? What happened was that Charlie got captured, and that completely threw me off my game. My units that I was bringing in were getting destroyed. That was the couple of Bradleys, the infantry, the riflemen that managed to survive are scouring for cover, but they're only base riflemen. Now that isn't so bad at this stage, but of course Riflemen 90 are slightly better equipped with anti-vehicle weaponry. My push up in the front was not really suitable as a pushing force. My units up here did not have the sufficient numbers to push through whatever I was going to see here. I did not have any reconnaissance here. I'm always warning people about recon and the importance of having it. And of course I ended up not having any of my own. So I got a pretty nice tank sitting out here, which is only relying on its own poor optics, which means that it's not going to spot anything. Actually, let's see. Yeah, there's Spetsnaz GRU coming right up the road. Of course, these guys have very good stealth, but the Abrams is not going to see them until they actually get into the building. I got a Chaparral duo here, but again, they can only engage air threats, so even if the 551s had pushed out, I would not have been able to counter those, and I wouldn't even have seen what was firing at my units. Over on the right, I have an LEV Scout and a Chaparral, so this area is more or less covered. But if they push up even with a couple of tanks, I'm gonna have to fall back because I don't have anything that can backbone this area. Now my riflemen are pushing in, and the good news is that all of the enemy infantry, that is the assault infantry, died. And we really only have to worry about the surviving AA infantry, which are still holding control of our FOBs. The longbow has been evac'd after taking a bit of damage and firing off 12 Hellfires, and the AGSs only carry 14 rounds total. So my Bradleys are going to push in and try to neutralize this infantry so we can bring in our own CV and recapture this area. But this entire operation threw me off so much that I was just completely all over the place for the next 20 minutes until the game ended, which I believe ended in a defeat. Now, of course, these guys are easy pickings for LAVs and M2 Bradleys, so I managed to reclaim that first FOB. There's the second bit of infantry, and I captured that FOB again. So everything's being resupplied until it's going to get bombed by the J7H bombers here, which is going to cost me one Bradley and a bit of infantry, I believe. There you go. Lost a Bradley. Infantry made it out, more or less. There's just 4 guys remaining here, which are going to take a while before they get back on their feet. And the remaining units have been damaged and or have expended a lot of their fuel. So I'm going to keep these things here for a while to make sure they're repaired, refueled, etc. Now this was surprising to me. Petter surrenders, and Petter was the one who moved all of his units there and did a very, very good job actually at capturing Charlie, or neutralizing our Charlie zone. But once we had broken his toys, once we had destroyed his units, he just decided to call it quits. Now I brought in a CV for Echo, but yep, same bridge, same issue, same vehicle getting stuck on the bridge, or through the bridge. Now I corrected this thing pretty quickly, but it is annoying because it is a point of attention that you do not need, especially once you're in a situation like this. Now earlier I mentioned that my flank here on the right was very, very weak, and even 2 BMP 685s, which are only 30 point units, managed to push my LAV or my fire support vehicle Scout out of there, my LAV 25. So again, pretty terrible play by me, putting down an attack marker where they were and bringing in an MBT, but this is all pretty much off-road terrain, which means that all of the units here are going to be slow. Now, I'm not sure what Jacques was doing here. His AA units were getting pretty close to those BMP 685s, so I marked their exact position with another text marker to make sure we knew where they were going to be. At this stage, the Spetsnaz GRU that you saw earlier here were getting into the building, and that's when my M1AP started taking a lot of fire. It barely made it out. The Spetsnaz GRU managed to take it down 8 hit points to only 2 remaining. And that was pretty pretty bad. Hence, again, emphasis on reconnaissance. And not only recon, if the enemy forces would have wanted to, they would have easily rolled into this area. All you would have really needed was 2 or 3 T-72As. That's it. With that, you would have easily wiped out anything that I had in here, pushed into my CV, and captured or neutralized Echo. Now, I lost the Chaparral there. The Gornostrelkis fired at the Chaparrals after they had been firing at the overflying aircraft. I managed to evac one of them, but the Gornos are in pursuit. Trying to neutralize that with an M113 and bringing in some V150 90mm to provide some fire support. They are nice off-road vehicles, pretty fast, and I was hoping that with these I would be able to at least suppress them a little bit. But again, I did not have any reconnaissance here. Now this was the next thing that frustrated me to no end. My BMP-70 has Shillelagh C missiles. Against 2 BMP-685s, you'd say, well, they should be able to do that. Nope, they missed consistently. Even the main gun, with a 60% accuracy, decided to miss time and time again. And once the vehicles pulled back and got outside the range of the main gun, the XM150, the MBT-70 returned to firing Shillelagh missiles. Terrible micromanagement by me. I should have put this guy much more forward, because these guys were not that likely to penetrate my frontal armor. Being 12 on the frontal armor of this tank, and their guns being 11 armor penetration. So I should have been able to hold this zone quite okay. Getting back into range, this thing was set to attack move. Shillelagh missile just casually flying all over the place, but not into those BMPs. And this was just almost like these things were trolling. The moment that my MBT was supposed to fire another ATGM, the things got out of range, so it had to relocate. And aiming those Shillelagh missiles takes a long while. So these things actually made it out alive, and my MBT started taking ATGM fire from this tree line. And again, I have 0 recon here. I have my Rangers, but that's about it. And the MBT-70 actually started taking from, I think... yep, just a concourse team, just 2 guys with an ATGM. They didn't have a lot of spotters here, but they did manage to neutralize, I think, a transport there. No, it's not a transport. I think it was a 90mm. And of course my MBT-70 died shortly afterwards, leaving 1 BMP alive, but that shortly got sniped by my M8 AGS. Another vehicle died here. That was another V150 90mm, again by the ATGM team there. So I was at this point pretty much pulling my hair out. I was losing so many units while scoring only 150 that I was extremely frustrated and close to rage quitting. Brought in some mortars here. Did a bit of HGM fire or mortar fire on this position. And with that I managed to neutralize the ATGM team, but the damage had been done. Those guys had scored, I think, 130 points of damage onto my units. Bringing in a M2A2 Bradley here, with infantry of course, but the main focus here is the Bradley. I wanted to get this guy in because it has a pretty good Bushmaster and TOW-2 missiles should I go up against anything. And of course the Bradley, being badly micromanaged by me, decided to start firing expensive TOW-2 missiles at, wait for it, BTR 152s, which are 15-point units. Again, pretty terrible. Really not worth firing ATGMs at. What I did manage to do is nail the KA-52 that was operating here all along and spotting pretty much everything. So a good move there by the Chaparral, and the other Akula decided to pull out here. Interesting use of ASU-85Ms. Not sure why he was bringing these in, because they are barely effective. But I decided to bring in quite a lot of units to counter this area and to reinforce my own position, since I now could focus solely on whatever was happening here. Now, I said that these things are barely effective, but against riflemen, they just nailed these guys without taking so much as a scratch. So I gravely underestimated those ASU-85s. As well as the Gornos, of course, who were also providing fire. Fired at them with my 106 A2s, trying to neutralize them or stun them. As my MBT-70 here did another try with the Shillelagh Sea missiles, but yeah, I suppose you can guess what's going to happen. These things have a tendency to fly completely everywhere except towards the target, and the one that actually got the kill was the Bradley that was behind it. Gornos over here on the left, and at this stage I have a bit of forces that are going to be engaging those. Rangers versus Gornostrelkis is not really going to work, so I decided to push in with my AGS and give them a bit of fire support there. But the AGS thought that killing VDV was more important. There's also one ASU surviving. It was, I believe, taking aim at my M8, but it missed, fortunately. And it missed by enough that my unit didn't panic there. Now I've decided to push up with the small unit that I have in here. And I'm putting up a large smoke screen here so I can actually get through. But this is where I start to donate tons and tons and tons of points. If you're looking at what I'm bringing in, you're going to see a major gap. I'm not going to tell what it is just yet, but you can probably see what I'm not bringing here and what is going to be pretty much my demise here. Now moving up the Bradleys through the smoke to make sure that they don't have to deal with infantry up close. But the moment they come out of that, they start taking HGM fire. And that was, I believe, a nest of Concours again. They actually made it to pretty close towards the CV, but they couldn't see it because I didn't bring any recon. And no, recon is not the thing that I forgot to bring. MBT-70 was going to push up, or so I thought, until it ran out of fuel. So, Parkinson's law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and that's exactly what happened here. In the meanwhile, my riflemen on the left, and keep in mind there were supposed to be 40 riflemen, only 10 survived, so I took massive casualties here. They were getting nailed by Mi-24A and an Mi-8 TV. So I thought, okay, let's push up the Chaparral. The Chaparral couldn't get an eye on the enemy helicopters because of my own smokescreens. The moment the Chaparral actually gets out of the smokescreen, it immediately takes a Concours missile to the face and dies instantly. So, it's getting comical at this stage, really. I feel like such a newbie. I was losing so many units. There goes another Bradley to a bunch of Gornostrelkis, and I believe they died without even offloading their infantry. At this stage it was getting comical and extrememely painful. Because keep in mind, there were 2 guys on the enemy team. 2 of them left. Peter left and ZZ left, so we were only up against Yaourt and WTD, or WDT. They had to manage a front that is huge. Over on the left side, Paramedic was doing a very, very good job claiming Lima and pretty much pushing everything through to Mike and eventually into Kilo. And over here, not much was going on, so I was pretty much doing a 1-on-1, maybe a 2-on-1, because Jacques also had quite a few units up here. So my Chaparral comes up, finally manages to nail one of those Mi-24As, and there goes the other one. My infantry that came out of the Bradleys has died, and I'm trying to get as much infantry up here as possible. But again, I have not brought one specific type of unit, and that is going to be very, very painful. The unit that I didn't bring is AA. It's just that simple. I got one Chaparral up there with an almost empty tank, 9 missiles, and constant air attacks. So the constant air attacks consisted of bombing runs, IL-2s, Su-25s, and that was my last AA unit. The only other AA unit that's out there is a BHO that got sniped by a seed plane. So we were out here with all the riflemen without a single unit of AA. And that is what caused most of my losses. Not bringing AA. You can see a couple of Mi-24Ds coming up. Usually, these things are not a threat. Until they start insta-nailing a couple of Bradleys, killing off the infantry that's inside, nailing my rangers, and my units were trying to get in range so that the Bushmasters could kill those helos, but they never got the chance. Because all of these units are going to die to helicopters. Again, I was tearing my hair out in frustration and shame as I didn't have a single AA unit nearby. I brought in the last chaparrals that I have in my deck, but of course it's going to take at least 3 minutes before they get there, at which stage all of these units will have died. Now I was trying to get to this small strip of forest as I expected the CV to be there, but it was just getting very, very impossible to get there. Due to those continuous helo attacks. Even groups of Hebung 90s were getting massacred here, as Jacques also didn't consider bringing a lot of AA. Now I'm pushing my mortars up as far as possible to make sure they can actually provide either smoke screens or fire support, as I'm still waiting for my AA to arrive in the form of 2 more pivots. I also got a couple of Bradleys here. They came a bit late to the party because, yep, you guessed it, they got stuck on the bridge. We got some more units trying to jump off here, doing all sorts of crazy dances. And all the while they are burning fuel. So keep in mind that this bug is not only costing you micromanagement time, but also fuel and supplies. Now you can see I'm losing a lot more riflemen there. This clusterfuck just keeps getting bigger, with also my chaparrals joining in on the fight here, at which stage we have a ton of AA just sitting there doing a whole lot of nothing and causing all of my units to get killed off. So again, Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and that's especially the case in this match. I'm bringing up a CV here. It's a pretty risky play, but I want to neutralize this reinforcement zone because our reinforcement route is getting too long. Our supply lines are taking forever to bring in new troops. And again, a couple of Mi-24As for crying out loud. These things cost 45 points. You cannot even order these in separately. They're only there to transport reconnaissance infantries. And they got Phalanga missiles, which are even worse than Flightas. Short range, low arm penetration, but still enough to neutralize a couple of Bradleys. My MBT-70 had gotten fueled up by the HMTT there, and it actually managed to neutralize a bit of infantry there. Smokescreen forced the vehicle, the command vehicle, to move there, but I don't think that at this stage I had killed it off yet. Actually, yeah, I did. I smoked it and then I fired at it with standard mortars and I managed to neutralize it. So, I'm bringing in my command vehicle, at which stage I was going, okay guys, bring in whatever you can right into Juliet. So, that's what I did. Watch what happens. Bringing in pivots and comvats. They're about to arrive. He's bringing in a Beho. My pivots and the VDV are going, ooh, nom nom nom, nice snack. Nice snack. What happens? Nailed it. Lost 100 points. VDV, rearming their vampires. Fired again. Lost my LAV. Comvats are getting panicked. Still accurate though. Lost a comvat. Still to that single group of VDVs. Hebungs were getting offloaded and they finally kept those VDV busy. But the forest isn't empty yet and we didn't know that. Now, what's going on here? The AA that I had brought in was supposed to start guarding this area against helicopters either leaving Juliet or coming into Juliet from Kilo. Those AA units had been killed, so my comvat was casually getting murdered by a bunch of Mi-8 TVs. Bringing in another comvat, and they are suppressing the Spetsnaz a little bit, but at this stage we don't have any reconnaissance anymore. The combat is trying to suppress the VDV, as it is also getting it suppressed itself, and I believe a big bomb struck my combat there and nailed it. So, time to move it up the pivads and try to nail a helicopter. Which I in fact managed to do. There you go, killed off one helicopter and Y-band got the other one. And by now I think that this forest was not even clear because there were still Gunner Strelkies in there. We hadn't completely cleared it out. So, yep, you guessed it. Beho gets taken out by Gunner Strelkies. I decide to bring in a Piphawk because they have a lot of planes flying over all the time. Piphawks, this Pip 3 version, is pretty expensive, 80 points. Yep, nailed it. At which stage the Gornos got elited. I brought in a heavy hog here, a duo of them to start finally nailing whatever is in there. At which stage a Q5D decided to drop a bomb. That bomb stunned the Hebiums, and I believe we're going to see another Q5D here. You can see that these helos are getting nailed, so I lost even more heavy hogs there. I got my pivads still up. I'm trying to bring in another Piphawk, because at this stage we still didn't have any reliable AA. So moving up with the pivads, trying to nail the helicopters, at which stage a couple of IL-102s and an Su-25 appeared. Yep, I managed to nail that one IL-102, but at that stage multiple Su-24s come in, nailing one pivads and surprisingly missing my Hawk, but of course we did not manage to kill off any of those. Hawk is now empty, Su-25T retreating, and look at the points. We are with 4 guys and we all have pretty good win rates, especially Paramedic and I think Y-ban. These guys are very, very good players. We are getting nailed simply because I am playing so terribly that I'm just constantly gifting points. More and more and more and more. So this was one of the worst games I have ever played. And you may be thinking, oh my god, what are you doing? And as I'm looking back at this game, that's exactly what I'm thinking. What the fuck were you doing? Because it is just terrible. The amount of inadequacy and incapacity that I have shown here is shameful. The last several things that I do get us some points. 1520 is what I'm currently at, so I'm pretty close to these guys, but I have lost well over 2000 points. And if I hadn't, we would have been equals. We would have been at exactly the same stage of 5300 points. If that would have been the case, we would have won this, because they have now lost their command zone in Kilo and they cannot bring in reinforcements. So we are looking for the last command vehicle. But at that stage, someone loses a unit and we lose the match. So we got defeated there due to my extensive stupidity. I'm going to disable the chat to not have that distract me. I lost 2400 units and killed off 1530 points. Jacques didn't do well either. He lost 1100 points, but in his defense, he is a newer player. You would not be expecting this from a 68%er, or at least I wouldn't. And of course Paramedic got a pretty good score, and same went for Y-ban. He really carried this team this way. Now, all the units that I lost were pretty much due to lack of initiative, lack of forces, so not having enough units in at the time of attack, or not having the right combination of units moving towards a single objective. That, and of course being heavily distracted, caused me to play this bad and to lose this many units. So I'm terribly sorry to burst your bubble, and especially those of you who think I'm a wonderful and very, very good player. Not always. Not always. And this game was so bad that I just had to show it off. That the lack of recon, lack of AA, especially the second one, is what got most of my units killed. So, word of warning, bring your recon. Bring enough of it. I usually do that. This game, for some reason, I just completely missed out on it. Same for AA. Make sure you have enough AA, whether it's infantry AA, a vehicle, air support, whatever you can bring, make sure you have it available. Because most of my units, here you go, losses due to Mi-24D, due to Mi-8s, due to another Mi-8, Mi-24A, Mi-24D, Su-25, IL-102, everything I lost. Look at that Akula go. It's the same guy, Nikonov. Killing off Bradleys, riflemen, MBT-70s, more Bradleys, more riflemen, more Bradleys. This guy must have been a rock star until he got shot down. So, everything I lost, and the list goes on and on and on, I lost due to air support or lack of AA. So, don't make the same mistakes I did. Make sure you cover your stuff with AA. Otherwise, you will end up, like me, in a terrible situation where you're going to be very, very, very close to rage quitting. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe enjoyed isn't really the right word for it, but I hope it was educational and that you see how I can go terribly wrong and how you can make sure that you don't do the same thing. Hope you enjoyed it, and otherwise I will see you in the next one.